Hi and welcome. I am here with Patrick Eilers, and he's a counselor to give us some advice and to talk to us today on a very sensitive subject. And I want to put a disclaimer here. If you're with kids in the car, we're going to be talking about some issues that are adult issues that we need to discuss. So I just want to give that to you as a heads up. What we're talking about today is some of the aftermath from sexual addiction and also from incest that happens sometimes in families. And while it's really unfortunate, it leaves scars and it leaves a lasting effect. And Patrick has a background in sexual addiction and helping people overcome these very issues. And we've asked him to join us today to help us understand how sometimes things that we don't plan on in our lives happen to us, and then we smother ourselves with stuff and it looks like clutter and hoarding in our lives. And if we can start to kind of peel away the onion and we can look at the layers beneath what's actually going on, it might actually help us either to understand others that are going through a similar situation, or maybe it will give us some insights into trauma that maybe we've never actually looked at. So please help me welcome Patrick Eilers.
Thank you, Angela. I appreciate being here.
So, Patrick, share with us, if you will, if there's a family member who has that wall up and all we see are their eyes, how do you approach a person that's hiding and invite them to come out?
Takes time, consistent time and consistency and time, both in that way. And so one of the things is that what loop or what tape or what self talk are we telling ourselves all the time? And that plays a huge role in how we're going to see the world. And that's again going back to belief system to some degree, but certainly the idea, kind of your question was, how do we help this person that's a family member, a person that might be suffering right now or struggling? I think part of it is, are we extending ourselves to be empathetic in that way? Are we allowing whatever their experience was to be their experience? And I'm not trying to change it or tell them that they're wrong or what their experience was incorrect or whatever the case may be. Am I still willing to extend myself in that space? Because I think one of the things that comes up a lot for folks when they're behind that fence is they think that they're the only person that has had this. They're the only person that's gone through this. They're the only person that is hurting the way that they're hurting. They're the only person that's been bullied. They're the only person that's been molested. They're the only person that's been, you fill in the blank. And when that happens for a lot of folks, when they're in that space, that can lead to just the way you see the world. It's changed a lot. Basically, it's altered noise that most of us don't see it that way. And so what ends up happening is that changes a lot of the way that they think. And so their thought process is, I have to, stay safe, whatever that looks like emotionally, specifically. And so they may hoard, they may use pornography, they may act out in other ways, they may do other unhealthy behaviors, they may eat unhealthily. There's a lot of different options they may use to try to keep that pain sort of at bay. And so as a friend or as a family member that's there, how are you allowing that person to have that safe space? How are you creating that for them? Because that safe space is going to be what's going to help them to feel safe. That's just like any relationship. We want to be safe. And so as human beings, we do kind of sort of cling to that comfort in what we know, even if it's unhealthy for us. So we have to, even things that are new, that are in the sense of safety, that might be something that's very difficult for this person to experience. So how am I, as a family member, friend, having that safe space for them?
When we talk about safe space, you mentioned earlier it might be a spouse that's going through the addiction, for example. If you were in a situation where maybe it was your spouse, and you said, and it's not just the one spouse, it's usually both people are suffering the effects of that. How would you approach the situation so that you could help your spouse get some help, but also help yourself in the process?
Yeah, number one thing, I think if you're struggling, what are you doing to address it on your end? So again, if you're struggling with the compulsive behavior, are you getting help? Are you addressing therapy? In some cases, are you going into recovery? There's some cases you may need to do that, depending on again, individual cases. There's recovery is much more of a helpful option than not doing recovery kind of work in that sense. Now, if you're a spouse, I think part of it is that, especially if your spouse has been betrayed, that's a little bit harder. And again, I'm not a partner trauma specialist, so I don't have that part of the training and I don't have that part of the insight. But I could say, just from what I know from conversations I have, is that a lot of spouses, they want to not be de-elevated. And what I mean by that is that everything else has taken the precedence over them, usually in most of the cases where, whether it be porn, another affair, other things in your life, whatever it might be, that person they've gone way down the notches of priority. They're not that important. They're now the person who struggled with compulsive behavior, they may say in their heart, yes, this person I love very much, but they don't know how to show it. again, if the fence is up, I'm not going to know how to do that. So part of it is that as a spouse, can I be open to the idea that I don't understand what my spouse is going through? And so I need to learn about me in order to be able to help be present for them, even though they have done a lot of things to hurt me and wound me. So it's a very sensitive issue in that sense, because I do think it's something where a lot of partners are very angry about that because they haven't been prioritized in various different ways. So I want to be respectful on both sides of that, but I think it is part of that space of, okay, are you willing to say, I see my spouse is struggling. There's something that I never realized that they're going through. I need to learn about myself in order to be able to be supportive.
Wow, that is really deep. And I can't imagine easy, but wow, I can understand how that could be really beneficial. I love this conversation, and I appreciate you joining us here today. Patrick, will you tell our listeners where they can go to find you and your practice?
Yep, absolutely. The practice website is northpoint-counseling.com. You'll see my bio. You'll see the bios of my other colleagues here who specialize, again, sex addiction, partner trauma. That's what we do here. So if you're interested in checking us out, my personal Instagram is rated_PGE. I don't post a lot of mental health stuff there so much, but I do have some photography that's a side hobby that I'd like to do there on that platform. You can reach me. My email is Patrick Eilers, my name, .we, like we, at gmail.com. So that's my personal email. I also have a LinkedIn account. It's just my name and has my credentials and some of the other things I've been part of on there. So those are probably the best ways to get a hold of me if you want to get in touch with me directly.
And I will put links in the show notes too, though, so that you guys can get in touch with Patrick. But I really appreciate Patrick being willing to have some of those hard conversations with us as we work through our journey of humanity. And we have some of those tough conversations that are those honest conversations that are going to keep us moving from point A to point B in our journey. So thank you very much.
Yep. Thanks, Angela. Really appreciate it.